Hello everyone, it's Dante from Ferrigno Freedom Channel coming back again. And for those of you who are joining me for the first time, welcome. It's so nice to have so many subscribers lately. I've got over 36,000 now. It just blows my mind that sharing information about a way of eating has changed so much of my life, not only on YouTube, but also physically. And it has been truly amazing. In the 2.5 years that I have been doing Lion Diet, I have still never felt better in my life. I have struggled with issues for a long time before this, and Lion Diet has changed everything. If you're new to the channel, I encourage you to go back and watch some of my early playlists where I talk about my journey, and you can see the very beginning of the journey, because I know a lot of you are coming in for the first time and wondering, what in the world is this guy talking about? But for those of you who have been here a long time, I do want to tell you that you can see I am no longer in the same room I was in the last time we talked. I have finally got into my house. We've been building this house for 19 months now, and it's finally finished. Well, it's almost completely finished. It's enough for us to move in, and that's all we wanted. We've been dying to get into this house because we have been living, my wife and I, packed into 284 square feet for the last 1.5 years, and then my sons have been in less than 300 square feet as well. So it's been really packed in, like camping environment for us for the last 1.5 years. And it's so nice to be able to not only move into our house, but to get some of our stuff out of storage and being able to use some of the things that we haven't used in a long time. I gotta say though, it's been really nice knowing that we could survive together in tight spaces with limited amount of supplies and things that we're used to having, and get along so well and do as well as we did. So that was encouraging. You know, we had thought about doing RVing before we decided to build the house, and just said we were going to be mobile and live that way. But I think after 1.5 years of living even less than, living even a little more than what it would have been if we were just in the RV, we realized we need some more space, and we're thankful to finally be in our house. Small as it may be, it's got a bedroom for everybody, and it's got a nice living room and kitchen, and it's got a roof over our heads, so we're extremely happy. I'm not completely moved in, as you can see. We still got a lot of mess in the background, and I got my speakers and TV, barely got everything hooked up so far, but we're managing. Meanwhile, I didn't come here today to talk to you about my house. I will, however, be glad to share some information with you guys in a future video once we get everything settled. If you are interested in hearing about that, please let me know in the comments if you've been watching for a long time, and I'll be sure to make a video just for you. Now, what I want to do today is I want to get on to our video, because this video is something that I saw and I thought, okay, this doesn't look like they're on the positive side. We have a couple of doctors on YouTube called Talking with Docs is the name of the YouTube channel. They have a video called Carnivore Diet, Why You Maybe Shouldn't Do It. Well, I have a feeling I'm going to hear a lot of the same things that I've heard from some doctors. I got to admit, I've had a couple of doctors that actually encouraged a carnivore lifestyle because they've seen the progress and they've seen the things that have turned around for people, including my own previous doctor. He never went so far as to encourage necessarily a carnivore diet, but he did go far enough to say that whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because it's improved your kidneys, it's improved your weight, it's improved your high blood pressure. It's improved so many things, including testosterone issues that I had before this diet. So it's been truly a miracle for me. So let's see what these two doctors have to say about it, and we'll get my reaction. Let's dive in.
Carnivore diet, time for me to start it.
Wait, what?
Not just joking. But what we are talking about today is this carnivore diet that is very popular and has a bunch of issues with it that honestly is going to create a lot of controversy because these people are very passionate.
I think anyone who has an extreme diet is passionate.
100%.
If you're like carnivore,
keto, vegan, whatever, you name it.
You don't see people come in, I am so passionate about a balanced diet. It just doesn't happen. People who go into these extreme diets.
It's like a religion.
Really are passionate
Zealots.
about it. Right.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of this diet. What is the carnivore diet?
Carnivore diet consists of eating animal products primarily, if not only.
Yeah, so the strictest form is truly only animal products.
That's right.
So that means no plants, no fruits, no vegetables, no nuts, no seeds, nothing. Just animal products.
Okay. It
Seems like a good idea.
seems obvious that it's not a good idea. I mean, I spent so many years telling my
Okay, just to cover real quick, just so you can be clear, because there is a little confusion about carnivore. Some people do what's called dirty carnivore. They got various different styles. I personally have been doing lion diet, which is specifically ruminant animals. So I don't eat pork and seafood and chicken. I only eat meat from ruminant animals, and that would be things like cows, buffalo, bison, deer, elk, lamb. So the animals that are basically, they have a multi-chambered stomach that's designed to remove all those plant toxins from the food so that they can properly digest it, and it makes for very healthy meat. And the reason I started doing the diet had nothing to do with losing weight, although weight loss was a big winner for me because I lost close to 100 pounds. I'm my high school wrestling weight, for goodness sake, and I'm 50 years old. So that has been truly miraculous. But the reason why it was so important is because I would go see doctors just like these two guys, and I would ask them, what is wrong with my gut? Why does it hurt so bad? And then I would go back to the gastro doctor, and then I would go back to my PCP, and then I'd go back to the gastro doctor, and they would scope one end, scope the other end, look at everything, and then tell me they don't see anything wrong. They would say things like, well, maybe you were on borderline pre-diabetic or something like that. Maybe your triglycerides were a little high. They had a few things that they wanted to talk to me about, but they never could give me any answers as to why I had such gut problems. And if you watch my earlier videos, you can get the whole history on that. It even wound up with me sitting in an emergency room, or actually in the hospital bed, because I had been to the emergency room and then I'd been checked into the hospital, left there to scream all night long in pain, and then have a doctor come in 12 hours later and say, so Mr. Ferrigno, what would you like us to do for you? And I was thinking to myself, I want you to fix this problem. I mean, what do you mean, what do I want you to do for me? That's what I come to a doctor for, is for you to diagnose the problem and tell me what's wrong. But they didn't have any answers. They looked at me like I was crazy or even making it up. And you know, in my experience in talking to a lot of people since I've been doing this channel, the symptoms are not uncommon. So if doctors are ignoring those symptoms, what's the reason for that? We'll get to that later. Meanwhile, these two doctors have already segued into, it should be obvious that it's not a good idea. I will agree with that. It should be obvious, because we have been propagandized since the early 1980s with the whole food pyramid situation, and then you start seeing boxes of Cheerios saying this is heart healthy, and you got boxes of all these sugar-coated cereals that say that they're good for you because they have wheat and they have barley and oats and whatever else they're supposed to have. And we all listen to that stuff ever since the beginning, and really it goes back further than the 80s, but the 80s is when it became standardized. It became the type of thing that they were doing in schools, the kind of thing that they were doing in the military, the kind of thing they were doing with hospitals. So this is when we got kind of forced into eat a lot of grains, eat very little meat, and you're going to be healthier. Now look around the United States. If you've been around for a little while, I'm 50 years old, so I've been around for just a little while, long enough to look around and say, there is a lot more people with metabolic disorder based on their waist size compared to their height, for instance. That lets me know that people are heavier than they should be and carrying a lot more fat than they should be. So what's going on? I believe it's the food we've been eating. But let's go ahead and get into what more they have to say now that we've done the introduction.
Kids to eat their vegetables.
Right.
I never thought I'd have to say it again now that
Right.
they've grown up and they have kind of good eating habits, but here we are.
Right. So there are some wild animals and other animals that are obligate carnivores. We are not them. So the thought behind this diet is talking about our ancestors way back, who knows even how many, 10,000 or whatever million years ago that you think. how they ate high-fat, high-protein diets. And some fossil studies have shown that maybe this is true, but other studies have clearly shown they actually did eat a fair number of plants. But the reason that
they lived to 32.
Yeah, that's right, because you're being chased by like a dinosaur or whatever, if you believe that. So, but what it means,
we never overlapped with the dinosaurs.
What it means is that these people did not have food security. So when you found an animal or you happened to kill an animal by hunting, you ate as much as you could because you didn't know when your next meal was coming. And usually what was available were animals. There was not regular farming, there were not industrialized farm practices, there were not stores where you could go buy food. Like nowadays we have unlimited access to food. So this is one of the arguments that, hey, our ancestors do it, maybe we should do it.
Okay, Mutual of Omaha. But now people are talking about carnivore diets for other reasons.
You know that show that they used to stage those catching of the animals?
Really?
Yeah, I was disappointed to learn that when I was a kid, we used to, it was always on Sunday nights, and we'd watch it, and they would catch the animal, and then they would release them, and then film them catching them again. But it seemed like it was like so real. But
it did.
I know, very disappointing. Anyways, go ahead.
All right, let's just pause there for a moment. This is a short video, so I guess I gotta do some rapid fire discussion because looks like they're gonna jump around a lot. I will say as a Christian myself, I don't tend to subscribe to the whole notion of what a carnivore and an omnivore or a herbivore is, because all of that comes from science that I think has been muddled with a lot of bad information. Saying that, say for instance, a dog isn't a carnivore when a dog will clearly eat meat if it has a choice between two things, it's going to eat meat. And just like us, it can eat vegetation. It'll eat grass, for instance, especially if it's feeling sick. Sometimes humans eat vegetation as well. And even in biblical times, we can read about eating vegetables. But meat is talked about an awful lot from the Bible. So as a Bible-believing Christian, I tend to follow with that line of thinking. Now, if you want to tell me that the cavemen hunted that way and all that stuff, that sounds great too, because I'm sure that had something to do with it. But neither they nor I, nor anybody who is promoting the carnivore diet knows what happened more than several thousand years ago. We barely know what happened a few hundred years ago with any accuracy. So when you start talking about prehistory as if you know exactly what happened, you got to realize all of this stuff has been built up on theory upon theory upon theory with a lot of conjecture and a lot of, there's some smart research going into it, but we just don't have enough information. Heck, we're still finding artifacts of things that reveal to us civilizations that we thought didn't even exist. The Hittite civilization was considered to be something that didn't exist, but it was mentioned in the Bible. So that used to be a way to put the Bible down and say, who are these Hittite people? And now that they've discovered proof and evidence of the Hittites, we actually have to, so they had to backpedal on that. So the thing about it is we don't know a lot about what went on with humans way back when. What we do know is how different animals digest things. And we don't have multi-chambered stomachs like ruminant animals, so we're not really designed to eat only vegetation and be able to remove those toxins. That's why so many plants are toxic to us. Granted, we can eat some, but there's another side to this whole thing with what you can eat as far as plant foods that come from plants. And that's the fact that we are genetically modifying them and we're spraying them with all kind of toxins. So anyway, that's one of the things I like to point out, because I know you're going to hear a lot of that from carnivore channels that talk about what the cavemen did. And yeah, sounds good. Sounds great. Sure, it could be, maybe. But I don't tend to lean that way. I tend to lean to think that we have a lot larger numbers going on in ancient history when it comes to man on the earth, and we have a lot larger numbers that deal with when dinosaurs were on the earth. But I'm not here to try to give you a history lesson on something that I clearly don't have the answers to. But at the same time, I do want to say that just saying that I'm a carnivore or I'm a herbivore is not necessarily good science to begin with. But I do know that when I eat only meat, it has changed everything.
Out there probably remembers Mutual of Omaha.
Our viewers do, because they're in that demographic. They probably did. Leave a comment if you watch Mutual of Omaha.
Okay, so but the modern day carnivore
Yes.
is drawn to the carnivore diet because they may have seen some immediate results of, hey, this is really working. I'm losing weight. I'm trying this carnivore diet. I'm feeling good and I'm losing weight. Why is that?
Okay, so yeah, definitely it's popular with the gym bros and the gym bro science and people really trying to increase their muscle mass because of the protein content. The reason that it has potential to help early on is for a bunch of reasons. So one, when you eat a diet that's very restrictive, regardless of what it is, chances are your calories are going to go down. So
elimination, you're eliminating other foods.
Yeah, so you reduce the calories, so this can show weight benefits, but when you eliminate these other foods, you're eliminating a whole bunch of things. So
Depends on what you're eliminating, to be honest with you.
eliminating anything from a box, which we would say you should do anyway. So highly processed foods. You're eliminating highly refined grains. You're eliminating sugary snacks as well as drinks. So these things we've talked about all the time.
Good things to eliminate.
They're good things to eliminate, and that might be part of why you feel better. The other thing is when you eliminate all those other things, you may have some things that you had subtle intolerances or potentially allergies to that you weren't aware of that now are removed. So you're like, oh, you know what, my stomach feels a little bit better, I'm a little bit less inflamed, whatever. There's a lot of potential benefits of these elimination style diets, but it's really, you're just eliminating everything, so it's gonna ease your gut. And some people say that things like leaky gut and your gut microbiome can improve when you do this initially.
All right, here's why it's not good for you.
Okay.
First of all, you could actually be, in a way, malnutritioned because you're missing out on a lot of essential vitamins and other nutrients that you just can't get from only animal products. Vitamin C, for example.
So theoretically, you could develop scurvy. A lot of these do take a long time to develop, so early on, you're not going to have signs of most of these micronutrient or phytochemical deficiencies.
Right, so you're missing.
Okay, I actually dealt with scurvy in a really recent video, and when both of them keep saying that initially you'll see these results, of course, I did see them initially. But I've been doing this 2.5 years now. I'm still getting great results. I'm still my high school wrestling weight. I still don't have gut problems. I still don't go to the hospital anymore. I still don't have constipation every day like I used to before I got on this diet. I hear that a lot too, about constipation being a problem. Before I started doing Lion Diet, I had constipation every single morning. Before I would go to work, I would sit in a hot tub for an hour in some cases, trying to get things moving again. As soon as I started eating this way, things started moving like they should. Granted, I don't go nearly as often as I used to, but that's because I'm using everything that I'm eating. My body is not eliminating waste, it's using what I put in it for power and energy. But the fact that I don't have to go see my doctors all the time for all the problems I used to have, and it's been 2.5 years, I think that's more than immediate results. And I'm not the only one. I mean, you've got Dr. Baker who's been doing this for I don't know how many years. Jordan Peterson has been doing Lion Diet for 5 years now. It's changed his life as well. Same thing with his daughter, Mikhaila Peterson. She's been doing it a little longer than he has. And then there was a lady on several of the carnivore channels around YouTube lately that I think she was doing it 16 or 19 years. And that's all she's had is animal products. And she's in the best shape of her life. So it seems like we would have seen some signs of scurvy from some of the people because it doesn't take years to develop scurvy. But I have no signs of scurvy. So that's where I am with that one. Let's continue on and see what else they got.
Out on a host of essential vitamins and nutrients that you're not going to get just from the animal product.
Right. So that's one. The second one is if you have existing kidney disease, that protein load can be very dangerous for you. Obviously, most people do not have kidney disease, but if you have borderline kidney function or kidney damage, this amount of protein definitely is a problem.
Okay. And another thing is if you're like me and your body has a problem with cholesterol. Okay. And you make too much cholesterol, or your cholesterol levels are a little bit high, or you have a family history of high cholesterol, a heavy animal-based diet will increase your cholesterol levels.
Right, because of the often obligatory amounts of saturated fats. And there is controversy as to how much saturated fat is going to increase your levels of LDL or the bad cholesterol, and it's linked to heart disease. We have videos about this. But generally speaking, this has been shown to increase your risk of cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, and the problem is that that is well shown. The increased cholesterol, increased LDL, that will increase your risk of heart disease. Yes. Where the controversy comes in is if you take medicines to reduce that, are you going to live longer? And I'm fine, I can accept those controversies, but it's irrefutable that these high levels are linked to heart disease.
Decades of...
Well, allow me to refute, because That is not, it's known now that it has more to do with the size of the LDL particles that makes the huge difference, and not the amount. You know, we've been blaming LDL for a long time. That's why it's called the bad cholesterol. We've been blaming it as the arsonist because it was found at the scene of the fire after somebody had a heart attack, and they look in there and they see all this LDL particles and they say, well, that's what's causing the problem. But it turns out cholesterol is actually a very important part of our overall body function. 20% of our brain is made of cholesterol. So getting rid of cholesterol is not the key, but it does make a difference what type of cholesterol you have as far as the size of the cholesterol. Now, I'm not an expert in that area, but I can tell you this. When my doctor checked my blood work before I started Lion Diet, your lipid panel deals with three basic things: LDL, HDL, and triglycerides level. The only thing that I knew about my three that was out of whack was my triglycerides were a little high one time. Now, when I go back and look at those numbers, I can see my HDL was a little low. The higher HDL and lower triglycerides translate into very good cardiovascular health, regardless of what the LDL says. This is what I have seen in my experience in talking to many other carnivores and watching many other carnivore channels, but also my own results. When my results came back, and I had several blood draws done since I've been doing this diet, the earlier ones showed my LDL was increasing, my HDL and triglycerides kind of stayed around the same for a little while. But then as I started progressing through, even my LDL went up to 110 one time, which was considered high for my range. But even my doctor said, there's nothing to be concerned about here, because he was looking at my overall metabolic health. My waistline had gone down. I was physically in much better shape, so he wasn't worried about the LDL. So for him to be pointing this out goes against not only what we see from the carnivore doctors on YouTube, but also from my own doctor, who has no stake in this game when it comes to whether or not you should be eating meat, because like most doctors, their job is just to prescribe medicine these days. I don't know if these doctors are in that category, but for them to be this adamantly against something and saying things that are not true about what the studies are is very disconcerting. Now let's go back one other step to when they talked about kidney function, that eating a lot of protein is bad for your kidneys. Well, many of us have heard that. I know I had heard it before, and I've heard it since, because I get a lot of people telling me your kidneys are going to shut down. This is going to happen. It's always something that everybody's got to tell me is going to happen to me. And that can wear you down mentally when you're doing something like this, because it's hard enough to stick to one thing that you know is good for you, but also to be constantly going against the social grain all the time can be really hard. But my kidney function has done nothing but improve since I've been doing carnivore. 2.5 years, my kidney function was considered low based on my EGFR and my creatinine levels. My EGFR was in the 60s range before I started doing Lion Diet. My doctor said that it's not an emergency moment, but it's on the low end of the normal scale, so it's a little bit of a concern, especially since they were trending downward. Well, ever since I started eating this way, my kidney function has been trending upward. My EGFR hit the 70s and then the 80s, and it's just been looking better each time. My creatinine level is still fine, and I've even gone so far as to have a CT scan done to check and see if I had any type of deposits, because I'd been told this so many times. My brother-in-law literally dragged me to the ER because I was having an upset stomach one day. And he thought for sure that it was going to be kidney issues because of the protein, but it turned out I had no kidney issues at all. I was just simply having a reaction to something, probably a virus, the doctor said, but they never really knew. Matter of fact, the only thing they told me is that my bladder was a little larger than most people's bladder. And then I had to go get that checked out and found out nothing was wrong there either. So I haven't had any issues in that area. My function as far as going to the bathroom, number one, which your kidneys are responsible for producing that, has been as good or better than it was before I started doing this diet. It's still not perfect. I still get up a lot in the middle of the night. I've had a hard time with that for many years, long before I started doing this diet. So that's one thing that it hasn't cured, but it's something that I can certainly live with the comparison of the way I was living before. but my kidneys are fine.
Solid research regardless of how you feel about Big Pharma. Okay, another issue with the carnivore diet is an issue with constipation. Unfortunately, if you're a diet that has essentially zero fiber, constipation is going to become a very big problem. And that amount of, they believe the combination of protein, lack of fiber, increases your risk of colon cancer quite specifically.
All right. Oh, really?
Oh yeah, there's definitely more. So the other thing is anti-aging properties. So a lot of...
I won't pause it too long. Constipation has not been an issue. I mentioned it earlier, so I just wanted to tell you that I've had constipation 2 times since I've been on this. Now, considering that I had a constipation every day prior to this, and now I'm well over 900 days on Lion Diet, having it twice is, I mean, those are outliers in comparison. And I'm very happy with the way things come out when I'm reading my newspaper in the bathroom. I don't read a newspaper. Anyway.
A lot of people who believe in the carnivore diet will say that there are chemicals in plants that actually are bad for you, that plants have devised a way to have these chemicals to make them less appealing to animals.
Yeah, just don't eat poison ivy.
Right, so having said that though, these are the exact same compounds that have been shown to reverse aging or reduce aging, like resveratrol, things like in grapes and other plants. So that whole rationale of don't eat plants because we're not supposed to, or not designed to eat plants, totally breaks down on a scientific level. The last thing that I would say about the carnivore diet is...
All right, since this is the last thing he's going to say, hopefully this will be the second to last time I have to stop it. When it comes to the thing with vegetables, I've covered that some already. What we have done to them has made them stronger, and what we put on them has made them more toxic for us. Not to mention, if you start looking at some of the way vegetables were made long before, the way they grew naturally, like a banana doesn't look anything like what it used to look like. It used to have large black seeds in it. You know, look at a watermelon. Seedless watermelon's about all you can buy these days. But now, if you want one that actually has the seeds, you have to go looking for one. And those are, even though they're annoying because you got to spit the seeds out, you're getting something at least that was natural. Now there's so little that's natural in our food supply, I think it's really affecting us in such a negative way. Normally, I wouldn't be against vegetables. As a matter of fact, for somebody who wasn't in the condition that I was in, where I had such gut problems with that leaky gut issue that I had, I don't necessarily tell my family that you've got to go full carnivore. I just try to push them out of having all the processed food, because if you're not having severe issues like I was having, this may not be the required way for you to go. Now, a lot of carnivores are going to argue with me on this because they want to be strict about it. I'm very strict carnivore because it doesn't do me any good to digest those things, because I still have the pains in my gut area when I eat roughage, and I don't need the roughage to go to the bathroom. So I just don't have any reason to want to eat anything vegetables anymore, because I function wonderfully on ruminant meat, water, and salt. If I didn't mention that earlier about Lion Diet, that it was only ruminant animals, the other thing is that I consume a lot of salt, another thing that they tell us is horrible for us, and I consume a lot of water and club soda. Those are my 2 go-tos. I never thought I would be a water drinker because I didn't even like drinking 1 glass of water. When I was thirsty, I wanted a Gatorade or something like that. I used to drink Cokes and Mountain Dews like crazy way back in the day. I quit those actually a long time before I even started Lion Diet. So it was actually kind of easier for me than it was for probably some people starting this diet. If you're coming off of a high sugar diet, I mean, I had been doing low carb for years before doing carnivore diet, but I'd just been getting lazier and lazier about it because I was spending more time going out to eat at junk food or fast food restaurants like Hardee's. And even though I would often get a low carb burger instead of a regular burger, a lot of times I just wanted to have that bread, and I wanted to have that ketchup, and I wanted to have that mustard and mayonnaise and everything else on there that just adds to the processed garbage in the system. And I think that over a lot of years that built up and caused me some major issues. Not to mention, when I was only in my late 20s, I had my gallbladder taken out. And I swear to this day that the reason I had that gallbladder taken out is I had been low-fat dieting for so long, and I was trying to keep from getting fat from eating too much fat, that my gallbladder was it's over here somewhere. It was over here somewhere. My gallbladder was not producing bile or not releasing bile into my system. Your body recycles the bile to reuse too. So it's supposed to kind of have a motion to it. Well, when it just sits in your gallbladder and sits and sits and sits and doesn't have any fat to break down, I believe that's what caused my gallstones, because back when they took my gallbladder out, they had no answers for what caused this. All they knew is the gallbladder had to go. But the bottom line is I do all this without a gallbladder. So I don't even have the thing in my body that's designed to help me break down fat. Yet I eat a large portion of my calories come from fat every single day. And there's a lot of information about that out there. I have videos that talk about it. Please just Google search the Ferrigno Freedom YouTube channel name along with the keyword gallbladder, and you'll be able to see my videos where I talk more about that.
If you go to the National Library of Congress database, where all randomized controlled trials and published medical literature exists, there are 0 studies on the carnivore diet. There are lots of studies about carnivore diet in dogs,
Right.
in cats, in other obligate carnivores, but we are not them. There are no studies. And so a couple things. In general, diet research, food-based research, supplement research is not very well done because it's complicated, it's expensive, and it's easier just to release something and say something and start propagating. But there's no data. So if you are a carnivore lover and you really love the carnivore, please organize a randomized control trial and please show us somehow that A, it's going to help in the short term, but B, more importantly, the long term. This is my big fear for these people. If you do it for a month and you lose 20 pounds and you feel better, great. But 20 years from now, your risk of heart disease and cancer and other medical problems are going to be very significant.
So we're not going to tell you what to eat.
All right. I got to address a lot of the things that he just said there, because he referred to some national directory or something that talks about the studies. This is part of the problem with science, is that you only get people who already agree with what you think to answer all your questions, then that's all you're going to have. And if you're constantly rejecting stuff just because it doesn't fit your narrative, that's the problem with science today right now. We see that in a lot of areas. Now, all that aside, there have been studies, and Dr. Baker has talked about these studies. Dr. Ken Berry has talked about these studies. They've even pointed out studies that came from Harvard University showing that the benefits were available. So there have been studies, but we just don't get to hear about those studies from guys like this. And why do you think that is? We talked about this earlier that I said I was going to get back to. Pharmaceutical industry has taken over the medical industry. It's all about prescribing drugs now. And there's no drug that's going to reverse most of the problems people have, but they can get you to get your symptoms treated. Before this, I was the administrator at a retirement home, and I watched very closely how my residents would go in to see the doctor, and suddenly this resident's on this new medicine, and this resident's on this new medicine, and this resident's on this new medicine, and none of them had the exact same issue. But all of a sudden, they're being switched off of medicines that were supposedly doing something for them beforehand and now switched to this new one. And it has all to do with the marketing of the medicine. You know, when you see those people that are going into the doctor's office ahead of you and they got their suitcase on their airport wheels, you know, the little roll behinds that they have, those things are full of the medicines that they want to give the doctors to use as samples to get you to start using whatever junk they're selling. And whatever agreement they're making is not a healthy agreement, because you can even look and see where recently, it's been in the past few years, a medical company came up with a cure for Hep C, and Goldman Sachs was one of their primary investors. Well, the letter came to light about what Goldman Sachs, how they felt about a cure. And basically, and we can talk about this in a future video as well, or you can search it out yourself, but basically what they were saying to the company that made this cure is, we're not interested in cures. We want stuff that's going to keep money coming in. We want long-term maintenance. So if you're going to make cure pills, we're not investing in you. And that's where the problem is to begin with right there, is that they're not looking to make you healthier. They're just looking to keep treating you.
not to eat. We're just reviewing some of the literature about the carnivore diet and some of the implications of it. If you're thinking of going down that road, you really should know this stuff that we just talked about.
Make sure you bring some Metamucil if you are going down that road. And then the last thing I would say is be careful of people that promote this diet, because throughout YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and all these platforms, a lot of people are selling you stuff. So beware of someone that's selling you a book or that's selling you a supplement. And if you have to take a ton of supplements to deal with your crazy diet, maybe it's not a good diet.
Not a crazy. I'm not a big fan of diets in general,
Right.
but I think you should have a good diet.
Yes.
In general. But yeah, I mean, really educate yourself well before you embark on this type of lifestyle eating.
And we're not sponsored by anybody, so what people eat doesn't really matter to us.
I thought you were sponsored by kale.
No, I'm a self-promoter of kale. I'm not sponsored per se.
The bully of all.
Good Lord. I don't even want to get started on kale. Let's go ahead and end it there, because I think they're just playing with us now. I do have to say that I would be careful about who you listen to about what, because I have gotten to the point where most supplements, and I really kind of felt this way to begin with, that you shouldn't need a lot of supplements, though I use a few. I do take an iodine supplement because my TSH was a little on the high side of normal, which indicates that my thyroid wasn't producing as well, which may indicate why I had testosterone issues before I started Lion Diet. I had been on TRT for about 4 years almost before I started eating this way. And because I started eating this way, I've been off TRT now for almost a year and a half. And I have not had anything slow down as far as the issues I was having before, which had to do with performance issues in the bedroom. Not a problem. Not a problem when I'm about to be 51, but it was a problem when I was around 44, 45 years old. And it's not a problem now. And I don't take anything anymore, and I'm thankful for that. As far as selling you something, I haven't written a book yet. All I do is share information here. I make a little money on YouTube, and I'm thankful for that, because the more I can make doing this, the more I can make encouraging people through my experience and hopefully helping free them from the chains that they've been in as well. I mean, when I lost all this weight and I lost all those pains and started losing the brain fog and the anxiety and stopped snoring and able to see better, I mean, a number of things have happened that I just can't believe have changed because of doing Lion Diet, that I can't help but want to scream it from the rooftops. And then when I get comments from people that tell me, this has saved my life, you have saved my life, what you've done has changed everything for me, I'm so thankful that you've showed me this. And it's not just a few people. It's a lot of people who have told me how this has made their lives better. And it's made my life better. So I'm thankful for companies like Redmond Salt, because Redmond Salt makes really good, healthy salt. It was one of the early ones that I found when I started doing this diet. They were a small American company, so I'm glad to talk about them. They make a product I think that's good, and if you need salt anyway, you might as well buy the good salt that makes all the difference for me. Not only does it make a big difference that it's natural and healthy, but it tastes good too. I never thought salt tasted good. I'd been told for years that I'm not supposed to eat it, so I think I convinced myself that it didn't taste good. But then also table salt still doesn't taste good to me. Redmond salt does, and I get it in a bunch of different forms. And I've tried other companies that I've worked with to see what they're doing, like you've seen me talk about the Dreo Chef Maker, and you've seen me talk about some products like Vintage Tradition, but that's because I believe in these companies. You know, I'm personally somebody that hates commercials as much as anybody else when they interrupt my show. But at the same time, if you want to be able to see this information for free, if you want somebody to put in the effort to sit down and make all this stuff and to buy the equipment I need to record these things and to spend the time researching and spend the time looking into this and to keep eating the way that I eat so that I can show you through my lifestyle, then I got to be able to feed my family. I got to be able to feed myself. I got to be able to pay my bills. And I still work a full-time job right now because this hasn't taken over completely. So I'm getting closer and closer to being able to just focus on what I have found is my mission in life, and that's to be able to free people from the body they've been trapped in, that has been that they thought that nothing they did was going to work. They've tried every freaky diet out there is. They've done exercise. They've done everything they can, and it hasn't worked. Well, Lion Diet has worked miracles for me. And Lion Diet is a very strict form of carnivore diet. It may not be the exact diet that you need, but if you haven't tried it and you've had similar problems to me, you might find that it is the solution for a lot of your problems. Well, anyway, that's all I've got to say about this subject and these guys on the video. If you wouldn't mind, stick around real quick and I'll tell you about Redmond salt and how you can get some and save 15% on your order. I'll see you next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?